Welcome to the More Than Anxiety podcast. I'm Megan DeVito, and I help ambitious women break out of the anxiety cycle that keeps them frustrated and stuck. Get ready for a lighthearted approach that will change what you think, how you feel, and what you believe about yourself. This podcast is full of simple steps, a lot of truth talk, and inspiration to take action so you walk away feeling confident, calm, and ready to live. Let's get to it. Before we get into this week's episode, I want to talk to you as a mom of teenagers and a former high school teacher. I've seen firsthand the changes in how teenagers feel about going out, about having fun, taking risks, and how they feel about themselves and their futures. They are bombarded with information from the news to what kid in their math class did on Snapchat or what was said about them in an Instagram post, the testing and the academic pressure and the athletics in school. It's all overwhelming. And they spend hour after hour face down on a phone to connect with their friends who only live a block away. It's a lot for most adults. So imagine doing it with a brain that isn't fully developed, a tidal wave of hormones, and a camera in your face. Which means what you might want to pass off as normal teenage stress or anxiety doesn't look or feel the same as it used to. The game has changed. The expectations are bigger and the information overload is real. As a mom or a dad, it's really heartbreaking and scary to watch your kids struggle. You do whatever it takes to let them see how smart and capable they are, to show them the potential they have if they could just get out of their heads, but you're not sure how to do it. I have some good news. Teenagers are still teenagers, and they want to feel included, heard, confident, and have crazy fun. They want to spend time with their friends and challenge themselves. And you, just to see what they can do. They just need to feel safe enough to go for it. Kids need connection to discover that they can do hard things, uncomfortable things, and grow from messing up. They need to learn to go big or go home and do it all again the next day. And they need to know that they're not the only one who's feeling overwhelmed and anxious and defeated. But they have to believe it's possible, and that starts with them believing in themselves. Wouldn't you agree that teenagers need support, encouragement, and to learn how to feel confident and calm now more than ever? You can help them do this by enrolling them in my teen group coaching program that begins on August 12th. This year, coming up in just a few weeks. It's super simple. All you have to do is message me. I am Coach Megan DeVito on Instagram and on Facebook and on Threads. Let me know you're interested, and I'll set up a time to talk with you. And now, enjoy episode 99.
In this week's episode, I am welcoming Thule Wolfe to the podcast. Thule is an artist who loves painting and working with clay, but that's only the beginning of her story. She has a holistic approach to healing that started from painting herself through some big-time crises in her life. Her story is mind-boggling, and I just wonder how she got from A to B, and I was into it. And I know you're going to be too. She's going to talk to you about how she works as an art therapist and who does live studio work in Berlin, how she helps people work through their trauma and come out the other side in a really playful and fun way. I'm all in. I want to take a vacation now, and I know you're going to want to as well. I hope you enjoy this episode and that you check the show notes after the episode to connect with her. She is on LinkedIn. She's on Instagram. She has a website, and she is brilliant. Enjoy this episode. Tell me how do you do that? How do you bring art into what you do? Or before we even go there, how about if you just tell me some of your background? Tell me how you got started.
So I started out as a medical doctor, and I went through medical school and then started as I did my residency in ophthalmology, and then I realized that most of the patients I had actually came to talk, and they were mostly lonely and just needed somebody to listen to them. And then in the system that I was in didn't really have enough space for this for me to listen, to take the time, because obviously in a private practice, you have like 10 minutes per patient, and then you need to move on. And since art has always played a very important role in my life, I was always painting or writing, I then decided to go back to it. And I started painting again. I quit the job, and then I moved to Berlin, like super cliche. And then I actually got into a real crisis through that, because then I was like, oh shit, now what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And then I just painted myself through the crises, and I realized the power that art has to heal, to allow yourself to feel everything. And then I knew I needed to share this to the world. So I went back to university and did a master's degree in art therapy.
That had to be very scary. I can't imagine finishing all of med school and then saying, no, I don't think this is for me.
Yes,
I'm going to go paint instead. Okay.
It was an intense process.
So first of all, I love it that you were intuitive enough to notice that, wait a minute, these people are lonely. They just want someone to talk to. And was it something that were you like in that place where you like, okay, I have 10 minutes with each patient? Was it something you to go, or was it where you were like, no, I really want to hear what they have to say. I want to be that person for them. How did that happen?
Honestly, no, I wasn't. No? I didn't have the capacity to be that person for them, because you have this pressure and it's just hindering the workload you have. So it was like, this is not the place where I can be that person for them. This is not the environment where I can do that. And that's why I also left.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that wasn't working. And at some point you just decided that like medical practice wasn't for you, but I love to paint. That was something you'd done your whole life?
Yes, actually, since I was a little child, art was always the thing that I turned to when I was lonely, or dealing with my inner world, and also processing what I experienced.
And I think that's so interesting, because so often if I'm talking with somebody and I'll say, well, what are some fun things that you can like to do? How can we make this more enjoyable, this process that we're working through more enjoyable? And when they say, I don't know, I always want to go back to, well, what did you do for fun when you were little?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I love this, what you just said, that how can we make this more fun? Because I feel like so many people are so scared to do therapy because they think they will discover something that they cannot handle and it's going to be all trauma and terrible. But I strongly believe that it doesn't only have to hurt to deal with your issues and to work through your trauma or whatever it is you experience. It can also be fun. And it can be something you enjoy and that you love doing and turning to.
Yes, yes, yes. Because it is. There was a question posed on Threads, I think a couple of weeks ago, and it said, why do you think so many people struggle to go to therapy? And my answer to their question was, because it's terrifying. I mean, you hear stories about people going in and finding out there's all these things that they have to deal with and they're overwhelmed. And I mean, if you're like me, you just don't like to cry in front of people. And it's burying your soul, but you've made it easier.
Yeah, I think
or
art
lighter.
brings a certain playfulness into the equation. So it's not only about the dark stuff, but art has the ability to combine even the toughest shit that you're dealing with beauty and makes it beautiful in the end.
Yeah. It does, because some of the most beautiful art is the darkest art, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like when we look around and we see things, it's like, oh, that really got me. It is. And then we can relate to it so well.
Yeah,
so for
absolutely.
People who, go ahead, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
If an artwork touches you, it's mostly because it connects to you on a deeper level. And most of the time, it also connects to a part of you that is in pain or that had experienced pain. And still you love the work. Like we love sad songs. We love sad movies. We turn to those things because we can then experience these emotions in a safe environment.
I mean, I think that Taylor Swift is evidence for that, isn't she? She has an entire album of like raging sadness, and we're all glued to it right now. Like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. But it is, we do get drawn into that so much. And those, I just want to sit around and watch sad movies. I don't want to be sad, but I want to watch this thing that makes me feel all these other emotions. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because we can externalize these emotions. So we can look at them from a safe distance. Also, when we express ourselves with art, we then have like a distance between what is going on inside of me and what is in the painting. And even if it's the same thing, it's still, safety distance. And then art has like a buffer function. So it's not all in your face, bam, 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 but it's there, and you can change it, and you can contain it, and you can transform it.
Yeah. And there is something to be said about being able to separate yourself and look at it from the outside. Because when it's inside of us, it's a lot. It's a lot to feel.
Yes.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, what is art therapy about for you?
So for me, it is a sensory experience. So we get away from the desktop, from swiping over glass all day. We come into our body, we reconnect with our body and all of our senses, and we find a way to express ourselves and to process whatever it is that is inside ourselves. We get to know ourselves better. And we find a way to communicate our inner world with the outer world. So, as you just said, if you feel touched by an artwork, that is such a profound form of connection that is really difficult to get with words with a stranger or somebody you don't know that well. And many things are so difficult to put into words, but they're so easy to express with colors, with music, with dancing, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. It is hard when I know I've had conversations with people and we'll say, okay, do you feel the feeling inside of you right now? What is that? And we can get to bad, it's bad. And I'm like, I need to know more. And a lot of times, one of the fun things that I do, which not with art, but just with imagination, and just saying, what color is it? Or, how does it move? What does it feel like inside your body when that happens? But being able to bring it out. So how do you do this how do you do this when you're working with someone? Do they just choose their medium? Do you have something specific?
So it depends. If I work I also give workshops. And if I do that, that's a bit more guided. So it's mostly people I only see once or twice, and then they go through a really guided process. But if I do like an ongoing coaching with someone, then obviously every session they decide what they want to do. They choose the medium. I work with mostly fine arts, like drawing, painting, sculpting, like anything like that. And then they also choose the topic they want to work on. So I don't really tell them what to do, but I do give homework assignments because I want people to stay in the creative process, because obviously it's easy when you're in the space, but I also want people to take something that they can use even without me. So when I'm not there anymore, I want to enable them to use their creativity.
And what a great way to give homework, because it's fun. I mean, we talked about this, but it's fun and it's not threatening. I mean, if somebody gives you paint and says, okay, let's talk about, paint whatever it is that you're feeling, or like you're letting them lead into that. So so you give them the option, they get to choose what they're doing. They're going to choose how they express themselves. And then do you offer prompts? Do you just let them go and then talk about what they're creating? How does that work?
It totally depends. I mean, some people are very driven, like they know what they're doing, and some people are a bit more lost. And when they're lost, obviously, I'm there to assist, and also assist with simple things like how to use a certain kind of medium, because sometimes you do something you've never done before. But mostly after the creation part, which is the longest part in the session, we would then I always call it like a little exhibition. And we would then look at the artwork and we would talk about it, and then also see, okay, how did you feel during the process? And then very often the experiences we have while we create reflect a lot on the experiences we have outside of this art setting in our other life. So if I feel frustration because something is not working out, then we are to obviously talk about, where do you know that frustration from? Do you have a memory where that frustration appeared? And that's how we then process the artwork. And then obviously there's also the aspect of symbolism. And I mean, it's not like, okay, somebody painted a fish and then I can tell them that means they are broken, because everybody has their individual language. But when you ask someone, oh, where does this fish come from? And then they start thinking about it, and then they start telling a story, and that's how you enter a conversation.
That's so interesting. I just, last week I interviewed someone who also, she does her therapy work, and she does, I wish I could remember, it's called narrative therapy, where they will start a story, like a story circle. And so if she has a group, it's like they start a prompt, and then the people tell the story, and the way that they interact with the other people, the way their story goes is how she does like her therapy and her coaching. But it sounds like you guys should write a book together, like with art and stories. And I'm like, oh, I have such a good idea right now. I love that though, because it's such I think we take for granted how we tell stories. And, when we are younger and we're doing art and we are, when we draw, we can look at pictures that little kids draw and we can say, well, why are you crying? And then they'll tell you exactly what happened or, what's this about? And they are doing it naturally. And somewhere along the line, we just lose that.
Yeah, we lose it. And mainly we lose it in school. It's when we're starting to get judged for our intuitive, creative expression. And then somebody comes and says, this is not good. You don't have talent. And that's where it stops.
So that's not just the United States thing. Okay.
I think that's...
I know I'm like, oh, it's not just
global
us. Okay,
thing,
great.
yeah.
It is though. And what a shame, because in the middle of this the entire world is struggling, aren't we? I mean, everybody's anxious. Everybody is in this place where we don't know what's happening and what to do with ourselves. And I think we're on the verge of this major breakthrough. It feels like everybody's trying to heal right now, which is wonderful, but also really sad that we're in this place and that we created it ourselves, kind of. Maybe not us, but someone created this mess that we're in.
Yes. I mean, we have the climate crises, we have a geopolitical crises, financial crises, and we have a mental health crisis, and they're all connected. It's not just separate entities. They're all connected. The way we treat ourselves is the same way we treat the planet, is the same way we treat other people, is the same way we deal with money. It's all connected. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish more people realized that. That is so true. And people would say, well, how is the climate connected with, mental health or something like that? But it is because if we feel hopeless, why would we do anything about anything? Or if we feel like everybody's out to get us, why would we trust anyone?
Absolutely. And then the same way it works in this direction, it also works in the other direction. So the changes we experience with our climate, they influence our mental health, they influence our physical health. So yeah, we're doomed if we don't find a way to heal, collectively heal.
Absolutely. And there's so many people talking about it, which I think is really refreshing, just from my childhood, where I even my kids would say, well, what did you do? And I'm like, but you don't understand. It wasn't a thing when I was little. It was just like, no, it's just the way you were. And it wasn't a thing. You're anxious. I don't even know what that is. We just move on. So really, it's not a new problem, but it definitely has evolved and grown. But I don't know that it's grown in numbers. I think it's just grown in awareness.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
maybe. We don't know. It's
hard to tell. How would we know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's that's great. But so I want to go back to what you do in terms of art and therapy. So when you do all of the story work, or you have them paint or do their art. So what is your progression? Like, what would be a typical client that you would work with, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
I think there's two different kinds of clients that I do ongoing coachings with. And the one type is a person who is dealing with complex emotions, who is maybe on the crossroads of a major decision, or is just stuck in life and is not where they are supposed to be. And the other thing is that I also work with creatives who experience creative blocks, or who don't know how to proceed, what their narrative is, or who are trying to find their creative identity.
Wow. So you don't deal a lot with like complex trauma or things like that. It's very focused. It's not. So if somebody said, oh my gosh, I have this background. I mean, I know that potentially you could deal with that. it's just yours is more like, okay, this is more focused in terms of the people with the creative blocks or the people who are coming to you because they are like they have a decision to make or something. Is that correct?
I think we all have some sort of trauma,
Yes.
but yes, I deal with people who are, I would say, emotionally stable enough that they don't need to go into a clinic, and to do this as, I would say, like a thing where they don't have to interrupt their lives for that. And
Yes. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. I get a lot of questions about that. As a coach, where people will say, I have this thing, I can't leave my house, I can't do that. And I'm like, that's not my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
But as a therapist, I mean, I think that as a therapist, are there classifications for therapists that do different things? Because I don't know this. I feel like therapists in terms of counselors can do, I know that like certain techniques, someone has like yours happens to be art, other people might do CBT or they might do anything else. But is there like this is the type of trauma that I work with frequently, or that I know that I'm so good at handling this type? Because you're right, everyone does have their thing, right? Everybody's been through something, probably multiple somethings at some point. But is there something that you're like, this is the type of person who I'm like, oh, this one, I got this almost every time. Like I just understand this so well.
Yeah, I think a topic that is really reoccurring in my work is anger. So I think because it's also mainly female clients, and I think women have a very specific relationship to anger and rage, because we're mainly taught to repress it, which then leads to depression. And then also to understand what is the underlying pain of that anger, what is the source of it. And I think for me, pain is something that where I don't want to separate between mental or emotional pain and physical pain, because I believe that it's one thing, it's the same thing, it's all connected. So yeah, pain is a topic that I'm very focused on right now and very interested in.
That's so good. And there's so much of it. Again, back to that. There is a lot of pain. There's, especially coming off of COVID. I mean,
Yeah.
we've lost people. We've lost where we were headed. We've lost so many things. And there's so much anger and so much pain out there that I was like, I had my life stolen from me for however long, like
Absolutely.
whatever their thoughts are about that. And that's such important work. Such important
Yeah.
work. Yeah. So do you work with people do you work people mostly in a practice, like in person? Do you work with people online?
I do both, mostly
Mm-hmm.
in person, because it's most people also enjoy coming to the studio, and getting out of their regular life and their families and whatever is going on, and have some privacy. And also, I think, have the luxury of me time. So for most of my clients, that's very important. But I do also offer sessions online. I also work with companies, so I do team events. If there's any like conflict problem solving, or even just if they want to have fun. And then sometimes I go to the offices. Sometimes we do something in a restaurant or different locations.
I love it that you can actually take it into corporations and do that. Like I can see all these guys in business suits out there, like painting and doing pottery and doing fun things. That is so great. And I'm just saying that if I lived where you live, I would come all the time, because it sounds like you're right. Being able to get out of the house and be like, oh, this is such a good way for me just to go take care of myself, have some fun, but also work through some things. So you have a studio in Berlin where you can
Yes.
go and just do art and therapy at the same time. Yeah. In America, we have wine and canvas where we can go drink and paint at the same time. But it's like the same thing, but not near as helpful. But okay, that is so fun. That's actually, I wish people would do that here. I think that's just an incredible way to be able to bring your gift into the world.
Yes, and also the next thing that I want to do is to just also offer an open studio where people just come in a time frame whenever they want and just create and then go whenever they want. So to keep it a bit more open and also easier accessible.
Yeah. And who wouldn't want to? I mean, it is like, when you get your life, when you're like coaching training and we've got all these like wheels of life, and creativity is on every single one. And sometimes I think we poo-poo that. We're like, oh, creativity, I'll fit that in later. But I'm like, we are inherently creative.
Yes,
from birth,
we are,
aren't we? And if we don't go there, it throws everything off.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what I also think is so important is that creativity shows us how healthy we are, and creativity also helps us to heal. So I think Martha Beck said it in a podcast that you cannot feel anxiety and think creatively at the same time. So one eliminates the other. And that's wonderful because there we have the most accessible, most easiest tool.
It is. And something as simple as a box of crayons and a blank piece of paper.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to have the palette and the easel and all those things. You really can just go back to when you were 5.
Yeah. And you don't even have to be a great artist. You don't even have to make art yourself. Like we've seen studies now that even just looking at art has almost the same effect as making art yourself. So it's really there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I went last summer. The Van Gogh exhibit was in a city close to where I went, and the immersive one where you walk in and it's on the ceilings and it's on the walls and it's all around you and it's just all of his paintings and music. And I could have stayed in that room all day long and never left. It was beautiful. And it was just on all sides, no matter where you turned, you were just surrounded by it. It was fantastic.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, there were little toddlers in the middle of the room just like dancing and spinning around. I'm like, look how happy they are. They should be here every day. This should be their school. Yeah.
And I think now in Canada, they started doing prescription art. So they prescribe museum visits by physicians, which I think is amazing.
What a great option. So we don't have to take another pill. We get to go to a
museum. Exactly.
That's so, okay. I only live maybe 2.5 or 3 hours from Canada. I want a prescription to I need to go to Canada. I need to just go up there and hit some sort of museum. I didn't know that. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Yeah. If we can get prescriptions for massages. Of course we can get a prescription for a museum.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And, I mean, I think also if you look at the United States or England, the creative therapies have far more acceptance. In Germany, it's still so difficult. Like the insurance companies, they don't accept it. And it's still, it's not paid very well. Like if you would work in a hospital as an art therapist, you can't even afford rent in Berlin. It's insane. Yeah.
I don't know that you could in the United States right now either, but maybe think that Canada I'm sure is way ahead of us. And possibly the UK as well. But I hope that we're getting there. I hope that Germany's getting there. I hope that the United States is getting there, because it's one of those situations where we need to throw everything at it right now. And if art works for someone, let them do art. And if it's music, if it's, whatever it is that's working for someone, we have to be willing to say, this is what helps them. And we need to find a way for them to be able to afford that and do that. And we've thrown medicine at it for years and it hasn't helped. It's just made it worse.
Absolutely. And especially in the States, right? You have a crazy situation with pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It really, really is ridiculous. But I do feel like people are trapped. They don't know what to do. And when somebody says this is going to help you, they're so desperate that please, I'll take anything. I'll do anything. And we've gotten ourselves into a mess.
Yeah.
I'm going to start asking doctors to prescribe art.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm going to call my doctor friends and say, oh my gosh, this is what you need to do. Because there are people, my sister-in-law is an art therapist, or she was an art therapy major, or some sort of art with it. Art and therapy, but maybe not art therapy, which is funny, but
Yeah.
it'll work. Yeah, but that's amazing. I just love that. So where can people find you to connect with you for your online workshops, or if they happen to be going to Berlin, so that they can come check you out?
So they can follow me on Instagram. That's Thule Wolfe, ThuliWolf, or my website, thulewolf.com. And there they can also contact me, ask me any kinds of questions. I'm really happy to chat more about my work and connect.
Amazing. Amazing. Thuli, thank you so much for being with me today. I loved hearing about what you do. And now I want to not go pick my daughter up at school and paint. I'm like, going to dig out all the art supplies. Yes, I think that sounds like a really good idea. So it's fun. Maybe she'll come home and paint with me, though. So she's 15. We'll see if she actually says yes to that. But yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing about what you do.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the More Than Anxiety podcast. Before you go, be sure to subscribe and leave a review so others can easily find this resource as well. And of course, if you're ready to feel calm, to stop overthinking, and have a lot more fun, you can go to the show notes, click the link, and talk to me about coaching. I'll talk to you soon.